Tonight, South Africa's new crime buster, Robert McBride, is back. He's tipped to head a new crime-fighting unit. His target, corrupt politicians. About time too. Is he the right man for the job, or is this a move to appease him after falling out with Bekele?
The first time in the history of South Africa, Saudi is walking to Parliament Union building as the President of South Africa.
A man steeped in controversy and now running for president. What drives failed businessmen to start a political party and think they can win? Claudi Matsoneng destroyed the SABC and lied on his CV. Zwanele Mani ran the Gupta's disastrous ANN7 news channel. Why would anyone vote for them or their party? They're both here with me in the studio to answer those questions. We also talk about which political party has run the best election campaign. What message is resonating with South Africans and why? Mocking his own currency, then gloating about receiving disaster aid. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa's bizarre outbursts at a time of national crisis. Maybe he's feeling the pressure of a collapsing currency and the pain of Cyclone Idai. But first, the news headlines. Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba is calling on national and provincial government to take responsibility for the lack of service delivery in Alexandra. He argues the DA has governed the city for only 2 years. Mashaba says he wants President Cyril Ramaphosa and Gauteng Premier David Makura to be part of his meeting with residents.
Officially, on the 15th, I've got an RDP with a legislative process where I can share with people of Alexander exactly what plans we've got for the area. But fortunate enough, this morning I saw in the media that the president is going there. And I immediately wrote a letter to the president. I said, Mr. President, let us not really make Alexander the problem a political one. Why don't you, the Premier and I, we go out, all three spheres of government, go and explain to people of Alexander, because people of Alexander have been promised for many years. We were in a new government only 2.5 years. So if we've got to take the responsibility, I said the President, the Premier, let us all three spheres of government take the responsibility.
There are growing divisions amongst the community of Vuyamani in the Vemba district municipality in Limpopo. Residents are divided on whether or not to boycott the upcoming elections. A meeting to chart the way forward collapsed. Municipal demarcations are at the heart of their discontent. The pro-Makado task team says the community will not go to the polls.
Exactly. I think we have reiterated our statement for many times. We are not going to vote until such time that our grievances are being addressed, have been addressed. We have said if we do understand that the process of the Municipal Demarcation Board will only open after elections, then we only need a commitment from the government. Since January the 24th, the minister came to this side, he promised to come back, he never came back with the commitment. We are still waiting until such time that we are sure that the process has been embarked on to take us back to Makado, who is then that we are going to collaborate.
ANC elections head Fikile Mbalula says the candidate list isn't cast in stone. The party has been condemned for including controversial names on its list, the likes of Malusi Gigaba and Nomvula Mokonyana. Mbalula was addressing the media, the party's program running up to the elections.
The people who are in the list of the African National Congress are not in contravention of the electoral law as it stands. But we, however, have got to address the issues of integrity. Hence, we agreed that the list will go to the Integrity Commission. It will go to the Integrity Commission. We have said that from the onset. Should the Integrity Commission arrive at a conclusion that certain people in the list, because of their own determination, scientifically looking at the matters, must step aside, the ANC would have spoken.
Former AO Technologies CEO Kevin Hardy has told the PIC inquiry that controversial businessman Iqbal Survey tried to bribe him. Survey is the owner of AO, which received a 4.3 billion rand investment from the PIC. Hardy is one of two former executives who testified at the inquiry today.
He was in Johannesburg for the BT board meeting, and he proceeded to offer that he would move my family to an all-expenses-paid waterfront apartment in Cape Town. All our expenses would be covered, including school fees, a chauffeur at our beck and call, etc. I respectfully declined the offer, which was an outright bribe, and said that I would not be able to convince my wife to move to Cape Town and that she wanted me to have nothing to do with him. He then even offered to phone my wife to discuss it with her, which I obviously strongly declined. I could not believe what had just happened. I remember phoning Superior and my wife, telling them what had happened. I was in shock.
Now, it has been confirmed to ENCA that the International Relations Department has been asked to seek clarity on reports of the missing Gaddafi millions. The President's spokesperson, Kusela Diko, says if there is evidence of any wrongdoing, law enforcement agencies must play their part without any fear or favour. The Sunday Times reported at the weekend that former President Jacob Zuma hid $30 million of the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's money at his Nkandla home. The cash is alleged to have since been moved to Eswatini. Gaddafi is said to have moved billions to several countries around the world, including South Africa. He was killed in the Libyan civil war in 2011. And ANC's election head, Fikile Mbalula, says the state must look into allegations that former President Jacob Zuma kept that money, amounting to over 400 million rand, at his Nkandla home.
The reports, most of the time, they can be reported, but in themselves do not constitute the truth. And that's why it's important, as a movement, we don't entangle ourselves in issues that crop up in a particular space, and only to find that we dance into an agenda. But however, because they've arisen in the public discourse, they must be responded to by the parties involved. As in this case, it is largely the state.
Musician Bongekile Simelane, popularly known as Babes Wodumo, and her sister have been fined 1,000 rand each and released on bail. The two, along with fellow musician Tobeka Tipkin Daba, appeared in the Durban Magistrates Court. They landed in trouble for failing to appear in court on Friday. Now, Babes and her sister Nondomiso Simelane claim their car broke down on their way to court from Pietermaritzburg. Artist Tipke was given a warning after she presented a doctor's note. The three are accused of assaulting another woman in Durban last month. The incident took place just after Babes Wodumo laid an assault charge against her longtime boyfriend, Mantla Mampintsa Mapomolo. They'll appear in court again on the 24th of April. Former IPOD boss Robert McBride's testimony before the State Capture of Inquiry has been postponed. This is due to the legal team not issuing notices to all those implicated in McBride's testimony. He will now appear before the Commission on Thursday. The legal team has taken full responsibility.
I will therefore grant an adjournment of Mr. McBride's, of the hearing of Mr. McBride's evidence from today to Thursday this week, and that of General Poison from Thursday to Monday, from Thursday this week to Monday next week. His evidence being subject to when Mr. McBride completes his own evidence.
I fought against the corruption of apartheid. I'm fighting against the corruption that exists in our society at present. So that's my reputation.
Former Independent Police Investigative Directorate Chief Robert McBride looks set to make a spectacular comeback as the new head of an anti-corruption unit after losing a running battle with Police Minister Bheki Cele to remain the head of the IPOD. McBride is now being touted to lead the new Ethics, Integrity and Disciplinary Technical Assistance Unit under the Public Service and Administration Ministry. Do we need another corruption-busting unit? What exactly will it do? Let's speak to Tahir Mahepa, Deputy General Secretary of the Public Servants Association, with me in the Johannesburg studio, and Lawson Naidoo, Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, in our Cape Town studio. Welcome, gentlemen, both of you. Lawson Naidoo, was this a good move?
Good evening. Well, I think the background to this, Jane, is that this institute is established in terms of the Public Administration Management Act, which was passed by Parliament 5 years ago. And the Act is now only coming into force now, and even then certain parts of the Act are not yet in force. So this Technical Assistance Unit is intended to provide guidance to government departments at national and provincial level, to deal with issues of integrity, ethics, and assisting with putting in place effective disciplinary processes. So it's really an advisory body, and as its name suggests, it's a technical assistance unit that will work with government departments to help them to improve their infrastructure internally, so that they can deal with issues of integrity by public servants. The legislation is also intended to deal with issues around public servants doing business with the state, financial declarations and the like.
You said 5 years and it's still not 100% ready. Why has it taken so long? What's been the problem?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is an issue, as I say, passed in 2014. It has been not been put into operation until now, and I think there isn't a sense of a clean-up under the Ramaphosa administration, and I think the Minister of Public Services, Ayanda Dlodlo, has been very keen on implementing many aspects of the legislation that's there in order to help clean up the public service. I mean, we know that the disciplinary cases, for example, take forever to process due to lack of capacity and lack of skills, and this unit will hopefully help to fix those problems.
Tahir Mayepa, I mean, your men, women, they're going to be, I guess, at the forefront here under the forensic eyes of Robert McBride and his team. How do you feel about that? Do you support this?
Well, the sad part about this unit is unclear to us exactly what its intention, because if its intention is to again look at the small guy at the front counter who receives a packet of bananas and then he gets dismissed for that, then it becomes a useless thing. We don't need that. We need a unit that is going to come in there and deal with real issues. And besides, already there's a lot of things that are coming out in terms of the corruption in the public service and all that. We still have to see anybody being taken to task. Now to come up with another...
Hold on a second. So they're going to be seated amongst you, and you still have no idea what they're going to be doing, how they're going to operate, how it's going to work?
We're not sure. Remember, there was an attempt previously to have this unit, and it was blocked by the former Minister of Justice, Jeff Radebe, because he said he was not consulted. That is his own competence. Then it was put on ice. Now, all of a sudden, on the eve of this administration moving out, then there's a rush to have these units. I just hope that this is not because they want to keep him quiet because of the IPID saga. And they put him in a unit called Tau that has no teeth, that is just going to sit there and advise people that are not going to listen to it.
Lawson Naidoo, I mean, I'm just wondering how you respond to that, and any idea what sort of powers it will have, and who's going to be the focus? Is it the small man getting the bananas, or is it the men, women at the top that we need to get to?
Well, I think the point here to make, Jane, is this is not an investigatory body. It doesn't have the power to investigate, individual acts of corruption or other malfeasance. It's an advisory body that's going to put in place processes and structures, advise the minister on norms and standards in the public service, to effectively give effect to Section 195 of the Constitution, which talks about the values that should permeate the public sector of integrity, of efficiency, proper use of resources and the like. So that's really the role of this. It's not an investigating body. It's not going to charge people, but it's going to put in place the infrastructure for departments to exercise proper oversight over their staff.
And what are you hearing about it appeasing Robert McBride after he was removed from IPID?
Well, I think, we certainly know that Mr. McBride...
Carry on.
is challenging the failure of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee not to renew his contract. The matter is before the court, so he's certainly fighting to keep his job at IPID. And I think, I'm not sure whether there's truth to the reports that he is being earmarked for this role, but he's certainly very much, waging the battle against the Portfolio Committee on Police in the courts, and arguing that he wasn't given a fair hearing by the committee. They didn't hear his side of the story before deciding not to renew his contract.
Tahir, I mean, if it's just an advisory role, you just wonder what sort of impact that's going to make. And I also want to know from you about the perception of public servants being corrupt. I mean, how real is it? How bad is it?
Well, again, advising the minister on ethics, what was happening for the past 4 years, 10 years?
You must wonder.
I mean, that is the question that one asks. But as far as the public servants, it is a sad situation that all public servants are being brushed with this paint that they are all corrupt. And if you look deep into some of these huge corruption that are taking place in the country, these were by instructions of senior managers and politicians to that legal guy out there. Now they are taking the blame for the decisions that were taken elsewhere. So if we are serious about dealing with corruption, we need to start at the top. If all these things that we're seeing in the media, all these confessions and all that, we are not going to deal with those. Nobody's going to take any new group or any new system seriously, because of already it's becoming a culture that you develop some commission or some unit, but it is toothless, it cannot do anything. And if he's there, a man of Mr. McBride's caliber, he must be used for serious things like busting corruption, because he's a man of integrity. He has proven himself to be serious about fighting corruption. Now you're taking him from where he matters the most, you're going to put him in a back office in DPSA to give advice to people who are not even going to listen. It's a joke. It's really a joke.
It makes you wonder if we're taking this seriously. Tahir Maupa and Lawson Naidu, thank you very much. It's exactly a month to go before South Africa's national and provincial elections. Twanele Manyi's African Transformation Movement and Khladi Matsuneng's African Content Movement have been dubbed the political newcomers to watch. What are their plans for the next 30 days? We speak to them next.